Hi, good afternoon. This is Lisa Benson from Benson's Boas. And today I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite localities. I'm going to show you some examples of the Brazilian Amarali. And there's been a lot of controversy about this locality. Historically, the controversy revolves around whether they are a pure Amarali boa, whether they are actually from Brazil, whether they are, a BCC, a boa constrictor, whether they're an intergrade between boa constrictor, and there's a lot of different controversy. In Europe, there's a common feeling that these boas were intentionally crossed with boa constrictor to improve their appearance, because the Amarali in Bolivia, for example, and in Brazil are a much drabber appearing boa. They tend to be very, silver colored, gray or brown, and they don't have the purples or the pinks that you see, and you can see some in this boa here. And if you look in iNaturalist, which is a very cool website where you can see examples of boas that have been observed in the wild, you will see in Brazil and in Bolivia that a lot of the natural, findings of boas in those areas are, quite drab looking boas, beautiful body shapes and body types, but they don't tend to have high color. However, one of the things we know about breeding is that we select for certain characteristics. And I think what's happened, my personal opinion is what's happened is that, breeders like Lloyd Lemke, Barry Miller, and some of the famous, Belknap, Joe Terry, Kerry King, some of the people who've been involved in the Brazilian Amarali lines have selected for certain traits in these boas and have introduced, through selective breeding, more color into these boas. Not that they've necessarily crossed them. I don't believe that they have crossed them with BCC, although I do believe it's possible that in the wild, there are areas where naturally occurring intergrades could occur. I believe that there's areas more in the northern part of Brazil, perhaps the northeastern part of Brazil, where there are forests, where the constrictor ranges are coexisting with Amarali ranges. And I think it's possible that, there could be some naturally occurring intergrades. Now this boy here, Santiago, he's one of my absolute favorites. If you look at the shape of his head, it is an Amarali head. I don't know if I can get him to profile here well in the camera, but he has an Amarali shaped head. It's flat. He's got the, wide shaped, beautiful, powerful looking head, but it is not long and pointy like a BCC. He has a kind of an almond colored body with sort of pinkish highlights. His head sometimes gets quite pinkish. He has pink overtones on his sides. At times those are much stronger looking than others. And his saddles are quite reduced. He's got almost like a burgundy color saddle. And his tail, although it is quite short, his saddles give the appearance of it being longer. So his tail is actually only from here down. So it looks longer, but it's actually quite short. This is where his tail actually begins. So this boy got a fantastic personality. I think one of the things the South Brazilians, or I'll call them Brazilian Amaralis, bring to the table is they seem to be incredibly personable snakes. They respond to the handler in an amazing way. I mean, this boy I have a personal connection with, I would say. He is seems to be highly intelligent. He is just a wonderful snake to handle. I can't say enough about him, but he has a lot of natural beauty. The belly colors, I don't know if you can see them on the camera here. He has amazing color on his belly, and he is just lovely. So this is my oldest Brazilian Amarali at this time, and I have some younger ones that I'll also show you. This is Santiago, 2021 Brazilian Amarali. I don't know if I mentioned before, but Santiago is a Kerry King versus Kerry King crossed Miller line Brazilian Amarali. Here is Sarita, and she's a pure Barry Miller South Brazilian or Brazilian Amarali. And she is a 2023 baby girl, and I'm hoping in the future to cross her with Santiago. So I think they'll have a nice pairing. So here you can see she's a little bit different looking. She's got she's got some beautiful saddles that have some peaks on them on her back. She's also got a similar type of tail to Santiago with some beautiful color in it. And you can see on the sides here. And she's got a really cool stripe on her neck. It's a little hard to show. She's a little more wily here. And she's pretty. Her head hasn't fully developed yet because she's still a youngster. But once again, these are wonderful, wonderful animals to deal with. Very, very lovely to hold. You know, they're a little squeezier than perhaps like your Imperator would be. They do tend to wrap around you a bit more. Not as squeezy as, say, a BCC would be, but perhaps a little more squeezy than an Imperator. They are a little more digestively sensitive than an Imperator, but not as digestively sensitive, I would say, that as a pure Amarali. So they're somewhere in between. They make wonderful, wonderful pets, and they're just so pretty to look at. I highly recommend them. Highly recommend them. So this is Sarita, and she's a 2023 Pure Miller line, South Brazilian. I'm sorry if she's squirming around a bit. So the story is that all of these Amarali, these South Brazilian Amarali, originated from Lloyd Lemke, and they came from shipments from Lloyd Lemke, and that he worked with. I guess he then sold some to different people. I think Barry Miller was one of the people. And Belknap was also a person, and I think I mentioned before, Joe Terry and Kerry King. So those are the real key people who've been working with these boas. And so we give thanks to them for keeping this line. They're not easy to find, but I am a real fan of them. And there are a few people in the United States working with them, but not many. Here is a 2023 male named Sergio, and he is a King Cross Miller line from Matt Mueller, who also bred Santiago. And he is a really interesting Amarali, South Brazilian Amarali, because one thing you'll notice with him is he is more of the traditional color of an Amarali. He has less color to him. He has, you can see, the traditional like Amarali tail. It's very short looking, even from the top. You know, you see the 3 bands there. But he has a really cool reduced saddle pattern. And Again, a little bit squeezy, but not too squeezy. Beautiful Amarali type head, which I'm having trouble showing you because he wants to just cling to my hand. Let's see if I can get him in camera here. Let's see if I can show you his head. Can you see it? There it is. He's so cool. And he's just a really good boy. But again, he's got a very different color type, very reduced saddles. And this is an example of a king crossed with Miller line. And more of a typical looking Amarali look with the reduced saddle count. Reduced saddle pattern and less color. But I really love him. And this one came from Matthew Mueller, who's in Maryland. And that's where Santiago came from, too. Sarita came from a couple out in California. And they don't have much of an internet presence. Christina McEwen and Ted Brennan. And they produce some beautiful Amarali, both Bolivians and South Brazilians. So this is Sergio. This is Solana. And she's sort of a mixture between what we saw with Santiago and what we saw with Sergio. So he's real wriggly right now. I'm sorry, she. Solana is a 2023 female from Matt Mueller. So she's a Kerry King versus Kerry King crossed Miller line. And she's got very cool reduced saddles. She's got a fair amount of pink developing in her now on her sides. And she's got some pretty color in her tail and on the sides of her tail. She's got a really neat pattern on her head. I don't know if you can see it. And just a lovely, lovely girl. Very, very pretty animal. And she's doing corkscrews at the moment. She settles down after I handled her for a few minutes, but right now she's doing all kinds of patterns on my hand here. But really a beautiful animal. Look, I don't know if you can see the pattern on her head. It's so unusual and so beautiful. You see it? I just love these guys. So she again was from Matt Mueller. So this is my population of South Brazilian, what is called South Brazilian Amarali. And I am enthralled with this species, this locality. And even though there's a fair amount of controversy around them, the people who say that they're not a pure locality, I believe that they are. I think it's just through selective breeding that they have become more colorful than they might be in nature, than you might find them in Brazil. And I question the South labels. Are they really from the south of Brazil? I've talked to people from Brazil, and that seems to be a little bit of a mislabel. When I look on iNaturalist, most of the boas that I see that have more color in them, similar to these boas, seem to be more in the Northeast. And maybe some I see that look more like this in the Sao Paulo area. But it's hard to say, with any of these locality boas, unless you personally collected them, it's really hard to say where they actually really originated from. What we do know is that, Lloyd Lemke is the person who brought them over. And that, the breeders, we do know the breeders who've been working with them. I know Jeff Ronnie had a hand in them too for a while. And so I think, these were all great people who worked with them. And we have to trust, that they knew what they were doing. And you know, some of them were even, you know, entrusted with the bloodlines from, you know, the greats like Lloyd Lemke and Barry Miller. So I really believe that what they are is what they are, and we just have to enjoy them. So I personally love them because of how beautiful and unique they are and their personalities. I mean, they are lovely animals, wonderful to work with, and each a jewel in their own right. So this is my attempt to show you them. Hopefully you can get a good view of them. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope to produce them in the future.